Title: The Persistent Shadow of Poverty in Africa, a Call to Action. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and dear listeners. Today we gather to discuss one of the most pressing humanitarian crises of our time: poverty in Africa. This vast continent brimming with culture, history, and potential continues to grapple with widespread economic hardship that affects millions. While progress has been made in certain regions, the scars of colonial exploitation, political instability, economic mismanagement, and climate change have left an enduring mark on Africa's socio-economic landscape. It is our moral duty to not only understand the complexity of this crisis, but to actively engage in seeking sustainable solutions. Understanding poverty in Africa. Africa, home to over 1.4 billion people, is often characterized by its diverse landscapes, rich natural resources, and vibrant communities. However, despite these strengths, a significant proportion of its population struggles with poverty. According to the World Bank, over 40% of sub-Saharan Africans live on less than $1.90 a day. This grim reality translates into food insecurity, inadequate health care, poor education, and limited economic opportunities. Poverty in Africa is not a singular issue. It is a complex web of interrelated challenges, each feeding into the other. Economic instability, corruption, political conflicts, climate change, and health crises exacerbate the difficulties of the impoverished, creating a cycle that is incredibly difficult to break. The historical roots of African poverty. To fully grasp the poverty crisis, we must delve into the historical injustices that have shaped Africa's current state. The transatlantic slave trade and colonial exploitation robbed Africa of its human and natural resources, stalling its economic development for centuries. European colonial powers extracted vast wealth, while leaving behind artificially drawn borders that sowed the seeds of ethnic and political conflicts. When African nations achieved independence, many were left with weak institutions, economic dependencies, and fragile governance structures that continue to hinder progress today. The post-colonial era saw the rise of autocratic regimes, some of which mismanaged resources, engaged in corruption, and failed to build robust economies. The imposition of structural adjustment programs by international financial institutions in the late 20th century further crippled many economies, forcing cuts in social services and increasing dependency on foreign aid. Key factors contributing to poverty. 1. Political instability and corruption. Many African nations have been plagued by political turbulence, civil wars, and governance failures. Corruption diverts billions of dollars annually away from public welfare into the hands of a few elites, exacerbating inequality. According to Transparency International, corruption is one of the leading barriers to economic growth and development across the continent. 2. Weak education systems. Education is the key to breaking the cycle of poverty, yet millions of African children lack access to quality education. Insufficient schools, underqualified teachers, and lack of resources prevent young Africans from acquiring the skills necessary to compete in the global economy. 3. Healthcare challenges. Africa bears a disproportionate burden of global health crises. Diseases such as malaria, HIV, AIDS, and tuberculosis are rampant, while maternal and child mortality rates remain high. Poor healthcare systems, inadequate funding, and limited access to medical services contribute to the perpetuation of poverty. 4. Climate change and environmental degradation. Climate change is disproportionately affecting Africa, despite the continent contributing the least to global carbon emissions. Desertification, droughts, floods, and locust invasions threaten food security, displace communities, and strain already fragile economies. The reliance on agriculture, which employs over 60% of Africa's workforce, makes climate change a dire threat to economic stability. 5. Unemployment and economic exclusion. Youth unemployment in Africa is among the highest in the world, with millions of young people unable to find sustainable livelihoods. This economic exclusion fuels crime, political unrest, and social instability, perpetuating cycles of poverty across generations. 6. Debt dependency and foreign aid misuse. While international aid plays a crucial role in alleviating suffering, the cycle of debt dependency hinders self-sufficiency. Many African countries allocate large portions of their gross domestic product to debt repayment instead of investing in essential services like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The human face of poverty. Poverty is not just a statistic, it is a lived reality for millions. Consider the story of Amina, a young girl in rural Kenya who walks miles each day to fetch water instead of attending school, or Kofi, a farmer in Ghana whose crops fail year after year due to erratic rainfall. These individuals represent the countless voices silenced by economic hardship. Their struggles remind us that poverty is not merely an economic issue, but a humanitarian crisis demanding urgent intervention. Pathways to sustainable solutions. While the situation may seem dire, hope is not lost. Sustainable development is possible through collective effort and strategic action. Here are key areas of intervention. 1. Good governance and anti-corruption measures. Strengthening democratic institutions, enforcing transparency, and holding leaders accountable are crucial steps toward equitable development. African nations must prioritize governance reforms to ensure resources serve the people rather than a privileged few. 2. Investment in education and skill development. Governments and international organizations must invest in education, vocational training, and digital literacy. Equipping young Africans with skills for the modern economy will drive innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. 3. Healthcare system strengthening. Investing in healthcare infrastructure, training medical personnel, and providing universal healthcare access will improve life expectancy and productivity. Addressing preventable diseases and maternal health crises will significantly impact poverty reduction. 4. Climate adaptation strategies. Africa needs investment in sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Supporting small-scale farmers with modern techniques, irrigation systems, and climate-resistant crops will enhance food security. 5. Encouraging entrepreneurship and job creation. Governments must support small and medium enterprises by providing access to credit, reducing bureaucratic barriers. Thank you.